just so our listeners know who you are, I'm sure most people have heard of you, but do you mind just briefly recounting your sort of story? You got expelled from your university, you got dropped from Childline, that type of thing.
Yeah. So I mean, I was just a kind of lowly civil servant, former lawyer, and I was trying to start up a new vocation in psychotherapy. I was doing a master's degree. I was counselling children at Childline, operating, under the radar, really, just kind of focusing on getting my qualification and trying to do some good with the clients that I was seeing. But then gender ideology and the sex versus gender war kind of kicked off, and I felt that I had to say something about it because I was really concerned about what the impact was, particularly on children, of this. So I spoke out. I wrote a petition to the UK government. I did some interviews and I wrote a few articles. And for that, I found myself expelled over an email from my master's degree. I was given the boot from Childline, where I'd been counselling children for 5 years. And I'm now in the middle of litigation against my former master's course provider on the basis of discrimination. And since then, I've kind of devoted as much time as I possibly can towards advocating on behalf of particularly children, but also others in society, women as well, in terms of the impact that this ideology is having across society.
And I believe you've raised about 120,000 on your crowdfunder for your legal case.
I have, which is incredible. I mean, I never envisaged I could raise that to begin with. And, the sickening thing is that that's not even going to be enough. I'm 2 years into the case. We're caught up in various preliminary issues. I'm still waiting on a trial date. So I'm going to need to raise more, but I'm eternally grateful for people who donate. But it demonstrates just how strongly people feel about these issues. And mine's not the only case. I've seen other cases funded, again, hundreds of thousands of pounds. And it's a shame that people are having to part with their hard-earned cash on this, but clearly it's too important to fight.
Yeah, and you totally deserve to get that money, because it all comes back to defending children, sticking up for children, which is why I suppose you've done all this, and women. But it's what is your hope for that case then? What's a win in that case to you?
Well, look, I think there's an abstract sense of justice, right? I want some kind of public acknowledgement of wrongdoing in terms of what they did to me, which you can't really quantify. I also do want the money that I spent on those 3 years back. That was tens of thousands of pounds. I also want compensation for the harm that's been caused to me. I mean, as I said, basically my future vocational plans have gone completely up in smoke. And I want to send a message to institutions that if they try and do this to their students, that they're going to face justice. So there's a number of reasons why I'm taking this. But I never wanted to take a case. I mean, as I mentioned at the start, I've practiced as a lawyer before. I always said I wanted to stay out of the courtroom in my own personal life because of how expensive and time-consuming it is. But sometimes you've got no choice.
Yeah, they also probably didn't realise they were messing with a former lawyer. But yeah, I mean, I suppose you have to get some sort of redress, because they suddenly kicked you out basically overnight because of your views. They tweeted about it as well to add insult to injury. It was pretty disgusting.
It's shocking. I mean, it feels so inherently wrong on many levels. It also seems strategically very bizarre. I mean, they literally threw their own rule book and policies out the window. I mean, I've never to this day had a conversation with anyone in the institution about it. There was no hearing, there was no appeal, there was absolutely nothing. It's crazy, and they probably thought that it would shut me up, and it hasn't worked. So.
And one thing that struck me from another interview you did is that you never got to even see the policies, because they immediately blocked your email. They blocked you from everything, so you couldn't even see the policies they were citing that they were kicking you out under. What was the specific thing you said again? Was it just that you were doing certain activism with you were tweeting? What was the exact thing? Do you know?
The key thing is that around this time, the government were announcing they were going to ban conversion therapy, quote unquote conversion therapy, and myself and various other practitioners were really concerned that that would have a chilling effect on the therapy profession. It would basically force therapists, we feared, into affirming children down a path of medical transitioning. So I wrote a petition on the gov.uk petitions website, which any citizen of this country is entitled to do, and it got 10,000 signatures, and it got quite a good response at the time from the government. It was basically that. It was that plus a few associated interviews and articles I wrote about that. That was the extent of it. I made a point of saying that conversion therapy, in the strict sense of the term, is abhorrent, is disgusting. Thankfully, most of those practices have been criminalized many years ago, but there's a real risk of criminalizing ethical talking therapy, and I wasn't prepared to stand for it. And supposedly, according to my institution, that brought them into disrepute.